The first criminal trial of former President Donald Trump, brought by Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, has been described as being made for the screen. Trump's allies say that's a good thing. Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz said that to NBC News, quote, "I love that Alvin Bragg is going first, calling this case, compared to Trump's other legal battles, the most frivolous factually and tortured legally." Back with us, former Manhattan Assistant District Attorney Catherine Christian and former U.S. Attorney Chuck Rosenberg, and also with us, host of the Bulwark podcast, Tim Miller. So, Catherine, to you. You know the ins and outs of financial crime trials and of the DA's office at Alvin Bragg. He campaigned on the idea that he could take on Donald Trump. Was this the right way to go? We know that Cy Vance, his predecessor, decided not to prosecute.
Well, it's not a frivolous case. It's a serious case. What the prosecutors would say, particularly if you're trying a case that's not a homicide, you're trying like a theft, you would say this case is serious to the people of the state of New York and is serious to the defendant. I can't say with a straight face it's as serious as the January 6th election interference indictment or the Fulton County indictment or the classified documents indictment, but it's a serious case.
Tim, I wonder what you made of what Matt Gaetz and others in Trump world have said, that they think this is a major win for Trump, that the hush money case is the first to go to trial, that I guess if nothing else, if the perception is right, that it's the least serious, certainly in terms of consequences, potential consequences, arguably it is, or are they trying to make the best of a terrible situation?
Maybe a little of both, and I guess it is the best case scenario if your presidential nominee has been indicted in 4 different jurisdictions, that the least grave of the 4 cases, the least serious of the charges, is the one that goes first. I guess that's better. It'd be better it's better to be in trial for this than to be in trial for an insurrection or for stealing classified documents. But it's probably better to not be on trial at all, I think is pretty safe to say, with the 34 felony counts. And so I do think they're trying to make the best of a bad political situation. You just had today, for example, Maggie Haberman reporting that Trump appears to be falling asleep. He keeps dropping his head down and his mouth goes slack. The candidate for president could be doing something else today besides dozing off in a courtroom while he's under trial, and they're trying to decide what jurors will decide his fate. And so I think that as compared to being able to run a normal campaign, this is certainly hurting former President Trump.
Politics obviously seeps into everything, Tim, and Donald Trump can go after the DA, he can go after the judge, and he can go after them politically speaking as well because of just the politics involved in getting elected for a judgeship, getting elected to be DA. Does that work to his advantage?
I mean, again, all this stuff is a little bit of a mixed bag, right, Katie? So on the one hand, Trump is always better when he's attacking, right? And so, this allows him to do the buddy fights thing that a lot of his base likes. That said, I think it's obviously hurting him legally. I defer to the legal experts on that side of things, but it's not great to attack a judge's child. And it's also not exactly like a 2016 campaign, right, which you covered so closely, Katie, where obviously there was some Trump narcissism elements of that, of course. But a lot of the things he was fighting about was about how elites, Democrats, the Uniparty, whatever it was hurting regular people. And this year, it's all about how Trump feels like how these forces are hurting him personally. And I do think that he's lost the plot in a lot of ways on a message that resonated with not a majority of the country since he lost the popular vote, but with enough people to win against Hillary Clinton.
Let me go back into the document, which is, again, to let you know that we have people who are there on site. This obviously is not televised. We can't hear it, but they can report in real time what is happening. Chuck Rosenberg, Judge Merchan is back on the bench. He says, I'm told we have 96 jurors ready to come in, and they're handing out copies of sheets of testimony. 200 jurors actually physically here today, it says. In any case, what happens now? It looks like finally what we've been waiting for since just after breakfast this morning might happen.
This is the beginning of jury selection. The first group of potential jurors are apparently in the courtroom, and now they will begin to be questioned more specifically about their questionnaires, their backgrounds, their education, where they get their news, things like that. over time, as this group is winnowed down, right, to 12 jurors and half a dozen alternates or so, there is going to be a series of challenges brought against their ability to serve. Both sides can challenge jurors for cause, meaning you're just simply not qualified here. You have a predisposition, or you want too badly to be on this jury. You're a Trump supporter, or you're a Trump hater, and a number will be struck for cause. And then both sides get 10 peremptory challenges, meaning that they can throw off a juror for any reason at all. Don't like the way you came dressed to court today, Chris. Don't like your glasses. Don't like that you work for MSNBC. Whatever it may be.
The third one may be the most likely of those to get you knocked off, but just a guess.
Can I ask a little more granular detail about how this works? So how many come in at one time? How many batches come in? And how long does it take to question an individual juror? How long is like the average of the lawyers getting in, going back and forth and saying keep or strike?
I would ask Catherine that, because we didn't do individual questioning in federal court.
Do everything.
Federal court.
So this is different because there's a 42-question questionnaire.
Yeah.
So what the judge is going to do is put 18 people, we call it, in the box. And each one is going to be handed this questionnaire, and they're going to be seated. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the judge, hopefully he'll do it differently. The way these instructions read is that the juror is supposed to read the question to himself or herself and then answer the questions. What I'm hoping the judge will do is just himself say, okay, prospective juror number 1, without telling us your address, where do you live? Why? Because there are some people who can't read well, who didn't bring their reading glasses. So you're now going to be embarrassing them as they go like this. So I find other judges with juror questionnaires, they read it. And it also make the process go fast.
And they're saying, what the judge is
But it'll
saying
be
is that
42
96
questions.
people are coming in at a time.
But the batches where they put them into the box, as Catherine said.
Each one has to answer
let me
all
ask
42 questions.
Say you get to question 3 and the answer's not great. Can that juror be dismissed, potential juror be dismissed earlier than all 42 questions
The
being
lawyers
asked?
don't ask questions until after the judge goes through.
But can the judge decide, I don't think you're going to be right for this?
If you have someone who this happens, yo no habla inglés.
Or if I sit down and I say, I'm Katie Turn, I'm an MSNBC anchor.
It's like goodbye. Particularly, if it was a regular case, they'll make you sit there, but like they've made Chris do. But on this case like this, the judge is going to say, thank you very much, goodbye. Because otherwise we'll be here forever. So that's what the judge will do. If it's so clear, someone is just like, don't want to be here. Like, as he said, anyone who self-identifies is going to be goodbye. And the judge has a lot of discretion to do that. So the defense may be saying, we want to do this appeal, we want to do it this way. The judge in the letter to the defense attorney cited all of the appellate cases that allow the judge to run jury selection the way the judge wants to run it, as long as it's legal and fair.
Can he start with a big picture question? And again, this is based on my experience. The potential trial that I was going to serve on was an assault trial. Has anyone among you been the victim of an assault or close to someone who is the victim of an assault? The people who raised their hand, he said to them then, does that influence your ability to be fair and impartial against someone who is accused of assault? Are there those big picture questions that winnow it down pretty quickly?
Yes, there's going to be the preliminary. He's going to all of that, because if it was a sex case, does anyone have a problem with this being a sex case immediately? And because that person may be a sexual assault victim or have someone in there. So he will do that preliminary and then start with the granular 42 questionnaire, which has a bunch of subparts. So it's going to take a while.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.